Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the start of a new project, the restoration of a radio that I've been looking forward to working on for ages. It's the Sony CRF-320, the iconic Sony CRF-320, the sort of set that separates the men from the boys. I'm still a boy on this one, so we'll see if I end up getting my manhood at the end. I've been wanting to get one of these for myself for a very, very long time. They are very, very expensive when you can find them. So that hasn't happened so far. And what do you know? My friend in London, the one that I've done quite a few Sonys for, he asked me if I wanted to work on one of these. Well, guess what my reaction was? Obviously. So he sent this radio over. In fact, he had someone bring it over from London to Madeira because this thing is heavy, and he had a few others to bring along as well and quite a few to take back. Point is, I finally had a Sony CRF-320 in front of me, and that's when the panic started setting in because the condition this was in, a little bit iffy, but it just got worse when I tried to power it up, as you will see. Now, one thing I've got to mention, and I have to give credit where it's due, there are two very, very comprehensive and very well done videos on the restoration of this radio. One is Mr. Carlson's lab, Paul Carlson, and one is the Radio Shop, Buddy. Incredibly well done, and the knowledge those guys have by far surpasses what I know about this radio. I'm going to link those two videos below in the description. If you're going to work on one of these, I suggest you remember those two videos because they are chock-a-block full of information that is indispensable to really work on these radios. I've learned a lot from them. I'm discovering a few things myself. Maybe I'll impart some knowledge here that wasn't covered in those videos. Remember, when you do a restoration and you report on it, you more or less report on what you find, and each person will find something different. So the whole idea is if a series like this helps someone, that's what I'd like to be able to achieve. But those videos are linked below, and I want to thank Paul Carlson and Buddy for the information that they've made public, and which is definitely benefiting me as I start this project. Now, this project in this first video, you'll see, takes a bit of a turn. This bugger really caught me out. Fortunately, and I'll tell you now, at the end of this video, things are back on track, but it was touch and go whether I really lost my confidence or not. So, if you like mystery, if you like these really challenging puzzles, if Sudoku is not enough for you right now, stick around and enjoy the video and enjoy the series. I have really been looking forward to this one. This Sony CRF-320, it's iconic. It's sort of I guess it's the holy grail of these receivers when it comes to doing a restoration job. I've been wanting to do one of these for some time. I've been trying to find one. I found quite a few. You can find them quite easily. The problem is the price. These things go for very, very high prices, so I haven't been able to get one myself. And fortunately, my friend in London sent me this to restore. And this one has got quite a bit to do, quite a bit. It doesn't look so bad when you look at it like this, but when you start looking closely, there are quite a few faults here. The front cover did not come with it. There are a few other things that are wrong with it. I'll show you. The front cover, missing. This lid, there's only one lid. Again, from what I've been led to understand, that's pretty normal. The time adjust has the cover, and the timer set has no cover. And fortunately, all the knobs are here. This thing looks complete. A bit of grime on there, but all the knobs seem to be on here. But straight away, we find a few little issues. The first issue has to do with some of the gearing. This is the medium wave and long wave. It's turning fine, no problem. This one, completely dead. Again, that's pretty normal. And this is something that was already expected. This is a slightly different issue. This one is completely blocked. Can't move it either way. The scale adjust sort of turns a bit. You can see it there, but it's slipping. So that's not good at all. This might be a bit of a problem. I've seen somebody else actually fix one of these. It's quite an issue. But other than that, everything else seems to be intact. These are turning. This is the frequency settings. Antenna. I've mentioned the scale adjust. Here we've got the RF gain. It's okay. Blanker noise. Yep. On off switches there. These aren't stuck at all. Switches sound okay. Those are fine. And finally, mute and AFC, they seem to be fine as well. Everything else seems to be intact, but let me show you the top. See this antenna hole here? There's an antenna stuck in there, but I don't even think the spring is there anymore. These antennas, the two of them, one here and one on that side, that one's completely gone. This one is stuck in there. You're supposed to be able to just push it down and it springs up. They've gone. Handle is okay. Now that is a problem because these antennas are very, very difficult to find. When you do find them, they're extremely expensive, and even then, usually they've got faults with them. So that should be an interesting challenge, finding two of these antennas. We've got the lids at the back. They're both here. I don't see any leakage, which is good. You've got all the connectors for the antennas there. There's the FM dipole connection. This socket, you have seen me struggle with replacing these plugs because they are different, but I think this one might work. I think it works. There's a switch in there which gets pushed up, and I think it's actually getting switched up. That's to just disconnect the battery. But I think I'll be able to connect this and we'll see if we get anything out of it. Okay, let's put it on medium wave. Nothing else to do here. Let's put it on. Oh dear. Oh, okay, we've got something up there. Oh dear, that's not working either. That is changing the 1 megahertz range. The 10 megahertz and 20 megahertz seems to be doing some funny stuff for that first digit. And of course this one is stuck. So power is getting in here, but there's absolutely no sound at all. This is the volume. Let's put it on, well, let's put on shortwave, maximum volume. RF gain, take off the noise blanker. I hear absolutely nothing, nothing at all. Well, that is a disappointment. And also I'm not sure what this thing's doing because that one is working. It's not set to the right range, but this is just a question of removing the knob. Actually, I'm going to remove it because I need to remove these knobs anyway to remove the front cover because I want to work on this thing first. Find out why the power is not getting in. I think I'll remove the front cover, back cover, so we can get access to this thing, see what we're looking at. I don't know if anybody's been in here, but yeah, I'm I'm a little apprehensive. This shouldn't be a problem. This is just one of those broken gearing things, and I believe the owner's sending a set that he's bought, but I think we can actually repair them. This one is greater concern, and of course no sound at all is an issue. Might have something to do with the power distribution in there. Let me get this cover off. I'll take all the knobs out. I'm going to make a record of exactly where the knobs go so I know how to put them back. I believe this thing only has 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Should be easy enough to remove it, and then we'll be able to see a bit more. Well. This speaker wire is gone. There was no speaker wire connected. This is the negative. That was just in there. But the red one, or the other wire, is completely gone. Oh, there it is. It's here. And someone's been in here. This is masking tape. There is tape over here. This is definitely not original. So someone has been in here. Someone's done a bit of hacking. But since I've found the speaker wire, I'm going to try again. I'm going to connect the speaker. Maybe this thing is working after all. At least receiving. That would be nice. Let me try switch it on again, see what we get. It's on medium wave. Let's try put it on. No. Oh, come on. Oh, I hear something. Is that the volume? Yeah. That is supposed to be on medium wave, but I hear absolutely nothing. What a shame. I should be hearing a lot of noise. Okay, quite a bit of work to do here. I'm at a loss as to where to start. There's even a fuse holder in here. Got to be careful, this thing is connected to mains. But there's a fuse holder, and I don't know if that's original or not. I just see a hell of a lot of tape here, and this stuff is not original, so someone has been hacking this thing. Don't know what it was supposed to do, but at least we know where to start. Trying to undo what somebody else has done, try and figure out what they didn't achieve or what it is that they've messed up. I was a little bit nervous before starting this. Now I'm a lot more nervous knowing that someone's hacked this thing. Let me remove the cover completely and look at the back. Well, somebody definitely wasn't here because a couple of screws missing from the bottom. But I've removed all the screws here and I've got two things to disconnect. One is this socket here and the other two are these down here. The red is on top and the blue is at the bottom, and we've got the back off. That was quite easy. Let's have a look at the inside now. Well, it never bodes well when you find loose wires hanging around. This wire is just hanging here. Again, more tape on here. What the hell were they doing? I really don't know what to make of this. You wonder why someone would put tape on this thing, why they would have loose wires hanging around. Having never seen the inside of one of these, it's difficult to judge. I've got to start looking at schematics and everything else. Again, there's another wire that's soldered, just strangely soldered on there, which does not look like it should be there. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I see a lot of tape up here. Well, I guess one has to start from the basics. Power supply. And one more step forward. I have the power supply here. And I just want to tell you, or tell myself, I'm not sure who I'm talking to right now. Maybe I'm just recording this so I know how to put it back in the end. But what I did here was I followed the instructions on how to dismantle stuff. And the first thing was to remove the sides. Then to remove the power supply, there are a couple of screws. Well, there are screws on here, on either side. And this flaps up. You remove some screws from there, flaps up. And that just folds down. So there's sort of a hinge on the front there. And you can see that because this literally folds out. And then the power supply has two more screws and it comes out of there. So we can now work on this without worrying about the rest. Obviously there's the plug on here that is removed. And I've kept the screws together. I have actually labeled little bags, and it says here main chassis overturning 1, screws 4, 5, 6 and 7. I've put them in separate little bags just to make sure I don't get confused. These screws are different sizes. I mean, it just makes it a lot easier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on this thing, and I've already removed some screws here, which are at the top, and this cover comes off. And we've got the entire power supply completely contained in here, which is a good thing because it means that if you put mains on here, you should not have mains anywhere in the radio, which probably saves you getting zapped. But what I'm going to do next is see what needs doing here. Probably some of the solder joints might be dry, but there's certainly a lot of capacitors on here. So I'll work on that. The instructions are actually quite good about dismantling this thing. I mean, here I'd have to remove 2 screws and that comes out and I'll get access to the board. It shouldn't be too tough. Just one more thing to note. There's a little latch on here. It's a switch. It's one of those switches over there. And if you want to test this, you need to make sure you plug that in, right? So when this thing has been recapped and redone, cleaned up, to test it, I'll put mains on here. I'll just tape that down, make sure it's active, and then I think all the voltages will be accessible at this point here. to this connector. I was absolutely convinced the problem was the power supply. So I took it apart, followed the instructions, took everything to pieces, removed it from the casing because there's a ton of glue on here, as you can see, and I wasn't sure whether the glue was conductive or not. It so happens that it wasn't, but I still had to clean it up. I don't want to put this back in that condition. But anyway, the supply was completely redone. We also had an incredible amount of rust on the casing. Now, somebody had already done a de-rusting job on this. They just hadn't done the full job because the section that I had to do was obviously on the underside. They probably just did the front and side, but it's pretty grimy. But with everything out of the case, it was easy to de-rust that. And then it was just a question of replacing all the capacitors, cleaning everything up, and putting it back into the enclosure. And the enclosure was then closed up and ready to put into the radio again. Now, what I did do is I did test the voltages, and I was a bit surprised because I did not get 12 volts and 5 volts. I got 12 volts and 12 volts. That had me a bit confused, but then I realized that I think one of the signals that sets the 5 volts comes back in from other parts of the radio. So when I put it back in, I got my 5 volts and everything seemed to be okay. So why am I telling you all this instead of showing you? Well, the reason is very simple. I didn't record it. I was so flustered. This thing was driving me absolutely nuts. And a lot of the stuff, I just went ahead and started sorting it out. And I thought, yeah, recording is for later. And that's what happened. So what did happen? Well, I injected a signal into the auxiliary input over here from a signal generator. That's it there. And according to the schematic, it cuts out the audio from the radio sections, whether it's FM or AM, and it'll pass this auxiliary through just by itself. Result, nil, zero result. Then I started looking around and I reproduced something to show you what I found. And I really don't know whether you can see it, but I removed these two screws. This panel comes out. You're supposed to remove those. I didn't actually remove these. I just pulled this out and flipped it to clean the pots because I thought maybe that was the issue. And I was tracing the signal all the way from the input to there. It was arriving there. But then I found something interesting. This guy was actually connected one pin across. So somebody had put this in wrong when they took it out. And there was a pin sticking out the one side, which means that this thing was one pin across. Bloody hell, I've had that before, but you know, this is the problem with dealing with something somebody else has been in and really messed me around. I got so upset that I had to go and check all the other connectors just to make sure they hadn't done the same thing. And now I'm confident they're all in, so what do? Let's test it again. So I again injected the signal in there, put the audio on, put the volume on max, and got absolutely bugger all. I thought, how many things has somebody changed on here? Then I thought, well, you know, you're being stupid. Let's check the power amp. So I followed the signal from here all the way through there. It was now getting through fine. I'm not even sure what was misconnected here or shorted. That was my concern. It could be shorted. You could be shorting something out when you put it the wrong way. This is only coming to the audio board, but there probably is, in fact, there is supply because there's a battery check and a light switch. So who knows what's been shorted there. I couldn't be bothered to check that out because I wanted to follow the signal. So I followed the signal from the pot to the amplifier board, which is at the back. This is the amplifier board here. It was really messy. It was all dirty. Some of the connections looked a bit dried out. There's something there that's been soldered on after the fact. Definitely doesn't look factory. So I decided to work on that. I disconnected these two guys, which I'd actually checked to make sure they were fitted properly, and they were. But I disconnected that, took two screws out, that one and that one. This board flips out, and I replaced all the caps, cleaned out all the glue that I could get to, cleaned out the back, redid a lot of these solder connections, and put everything back again. And I thought, okay, let's see how we get along now. I've got the signal coming in again. And when you connect that in there, it cuts the input from the radio sections. And there we are. Pretty strong signal, pretty strong tone. I've got 100 millivolts coming in. at the auxiliary. I think that's far too high. Let me put 10 millivolts. And I think what they say is that the sensitivity is 4.4 millivolts. Let me put 5 millivolts. 4.4 millivolts for 50 milliwatt output. This is the workshop speaker over here. I think that probably sounds like 50 milliwatts. My ears aren't a power meter, but this thing is very sensitive. I'm getting a very, very good tone there, and I notice the tone controls are working. This is treble. Obviously, when I give it full blast, it's allowing the, 600 hertz to go through. If I pull it down, it does affect it a bit. And the bass, well, I know it's working, but you can't hear it because the 600 hertz tone is above the bass range. Actually, let me try that. Let me put this thing on 100 hertz. Yeah, it definitely responds. So the whole audio section seems to be working fine now. Thank God for that. I think I can get back to sort of filming again. Now I've got some major issues here with the mechanics, and I'm working on a cunning plan. I don't know if you recall, but when we started off, this thing was turning, this one was not. This thing was just flipping around like crazy, and this thing was actually turning. You could see it turning. However, as soon as I started using it a bit to test it, it stopped. And the reason is, I really don't know if you can see that, but there's a cracked gear. That's cracked down there. It looks like someone actually tried to put glue on here. Yeah, it's opening, it's cracked, but someone tried to put glue on here, and it's actually starting to crack on the other side as well. This is the one, I don't even remember which one it is now, but the other one has exactly the same problem. Now, these are notoriously bad for this problem. They crack and then they start slipping. So it wasn't surprising. But the problem is that the owner of this radio, this friend of mine, had actually ordered some. And apparently it arrived at his company. Somebody thought it was junk and threw it away. That's what I recall him saying. So waiting for these things to arrive is not really what I like to do. So I went and looked on the web. And you won't believe what I found. I found this. I found an actual STL file, which is a print file. It's STL, and it's for a 3D print of that gear. And it looks, or looked, pretty close to exact. There's one thing here which is strange. There's a ridge on the inside. I think this is sort of to make it hold at the top. I'm not sure. I don't think the original has it. But other than that, look, this looks pretty good. This looks very, very good indeed. So what I did was I imported this into Fusion 360. And this is what you get, because I wanted to see if I can make changes on here, if it didn't work too well, because I started printing copies of this thing. And I've made some changes. Yeah, it's actually quite a task to convert an STL file into a editable body in Fusion 360, but I've learned how to do that. I've taken that top ridge, which is a little bit strange. It won't let this thing go down far enough. And I started printing copies, and I've got various versions of this thing. I've got many versions of this thing. I have tried this with 100% solid. I've tried this with different resolutions. I tried this. I had to actually widen the hole there because I had to sand it quite a bit to get it in. When I made the hole too big, this thing was shining light through it, so I'd obviously gone too far. But I finally got two that work quite well. And I've got them installed in there. In fact, I can show you what this looks like. This thing is near as damn it exactly the same as those white ones that they were selling. Now this is an ABS plastic. I don't know how good they'll be compared to the nylon ones that were in there, but the nylon ones that were in there broke, remember? I've actually removed that retaining clip. It's all safely kept aside because I just wanted to test this. And now I can put some screws back on just to hold it temporarily. Now this thing is quite complex to adjust, to align, to get this thing working perfectly well. But for our purposes right now, I don't have to worry about that. because when I take this out, I've got to take this out, otherwise it cuts out any radio signal. And I put this thing on. This is what I got. Absolutely bugger all on FM. And then I remembered something. There's something called a mute switch, and that keeps the sound between stations on FM quiet. When I did this, that's what I got. And when I tune, brilliant. Brilliant. Now I changed the one for medium wave as well. And for that, I need to put the antenna, I use the mini whip on here. I've got to put that into the external antenna socket, otherwise I get pretty much bugger all. Put on the mini whip, and we're getting some noise. And we are getting reception. Same applies to long wave. Can't see where I am because I've removed the dial, but last night I was picking something up on long wave. Quite normal that I wouldn't pick it up now, but it's also working. So that means that our radio section for these two channels, or at least for FM, long wave and medium wave, are fine. What about shortwave? Shortwave gave me bugger all. Absolutely nothing. I can hear the noise, but nothing. I've tried everything on here. So we have a problem with shortwave, but this is where doing some research really, really helps. I mentioned two videos that have done a full restoration of this, and I also mentioned they've done an incredible job. The Radio Shop and Mr. Carlson's Lab. Now, in Mr. Carlson's Lab's one, which is linked below, he has exactly the same problem. He gets FM, he gets long wave and medium wave, and he gets no shortwave. And he found out that it's a problem with the BFO here, because when you follow the block diagram, you start seeing which parts are common. So from the part where they join up forward, that'll be fine. Okay, all the audio and everything else will be fine. So you just look for the section that it relates to the part that's not working. And he actually gives an incredibly good description on how to go about testing for that, which is what I'm going to do after this. But for now, I've got to tell you, I'm so relieved that I've at least got something that I can now breathe easier and start doing some of the things that I've been sort of putting aside. I've been putting aside some of the cleaning that I do as I go along, because usually when I go along, I'm making progress. In this case, I was just back to square one all the time. It was driving me nuts. But now I can start doing that. I can start removing old glue and old foam and old tape, which then becomes a sticky mess. There's some of it over here. I don't even know what that is, but it's obviously something they used. It's now just paste. But whatever, they've got tape and glue and stuff everywhere. I can start going back and repairing some of that or cleaning some of that. And yeah, and breathe easier, and then start focusing on some of the issues that I do know have a problem. But that's where I'm going to leave you for now, because I really need a bit of a break from this. You don't see much of it in the video, but this has been really frustrating. So there we go. We've got the radio working as a radio, at least partially. Yeah, and now the path forward is one of iterative improvements rather than just trying to find why it did absolutely nothing. So yeah, that's it. And I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon and PayPal. Once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now and stay safe.